Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through our top 5 biggest IDP fantasy football winners post-2025 NFL draft.
Hike!
So in this episode, this is going to be a consensus top 5 list between Joe and I. We're going to be going through those veteran players that we think benefited greatly based on where these rookies went in the draft. So I'll start off first, Joe, at the number one. Well, I guess we didn't rank them one as in the number one. These all 5 are great, but it's going to be safety Kyle Hamilton of the Baltimore Ravens, a guy who has been able to be used all over the field for the Ravens. But now that they bring in Malachi Starks at safety, Malachi Starks can play the nickel. He's more the deep safety, which means that Kyle Hamilton ends up being closer to the ball, and we expect him to get a ton of tackles, Joe. So I think when it comes down to it, Kyle Hamilton, he's always been good. He started off a little bit slow, but going forward, Joe, I think he could have a huge year. And I know you do too.
Yeah, I do think he should have, and he should be in line for a huge year. Just the flexibility that a guy like Malachi Starks, adds to that Baltimore Ravens secondary, allows them to kind of move guys around. Unfortunately, last year, just the way things were when the Ravens defense really turned it on, Kyle Hamilton was kind of forced into that free safety role, and then Darius Washington was really the strong safety guy. But I think with Malachi Starks, I'd anticipate him being more the free safety, which should free up Kyle Hamilton to get more box snaps and play closer to the ball as we've seen in the past with him.
Well, not to mention, too, I mean, you've got Roquan, say that like 3 or 4 times fast. They have Roquan Smith, but Trent Simpson's been somewhat of a disappointment as far as that second tackler is concerned.
Yeah, he definitely has.
So as a result, I think it gives, Kyle Hamilton more opportunities, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, lack of a second linebacker for sure, I think definitely provides Hamilton, more opportunities in that role.
I mean, if you look at last year, just, looking at position wise, I mean, he played a lot in the box, but he also played a lot in slot corner. He played 407 snaps in the box, 355 at free safety, and 292 snaps at slot corner, according to PFF. So I think you and I both would expect that slot corner free safety position is going to be more of that Malachi Starks role. And as a result, then we're going to see more box snaps. And if he gets more box snaps, he's going to get more tackles. He's going to be closer to the ball.
100%. And, was Stevens not being there anymore either. I mean, there's definitely a role to be had for that nickel role as well.
Absolutely. So, Joe, why don't you give the people our second player that we're quite interested in this year?
Yeah, our second player is going to be linebacker Fred Warner with the San Francisco 49ers. And, he's really a winner, as in, they lost Dre Greenlaw, but then they brought in a guy that should be able to kind of fill in to be the opposite linebacker to him with Nick Martin in the 3rd round of Oklahoma State. And he's very similar to the Dre Greenlaw, sideline to sideline speed, fills in that role. So at least it'll give it a running mate to Fred Warner, which would have been kind of concerning if he was the only linebacker there.
Well, you think about it, right? I mean, Warner has been a model of consistency, in the league. But the problem is that he never really gets enough tackles to make him a, top 5 linebacker. He's always consistently in the top 12. But he was on an absolute tear last year before he got injured. Wasn't it, is it a knee? I'm trying to remember. Or was it, I'm trying to remember what injury it was.
I don't think it was. I thought it was something to do with like his foot
ankle?
Or something. A foot or ankle. I was thinking. I don't think it was a knee.
Okay. But, I mean, regardless, I mean, this team is just ravaged. I mean, they lost so many different players on this team. And as a result, I think there's going to be a lot of tackle opportunities for Fred Warner. And I think he can build upon what he was doing a little bit last year.
Yeah, he definitely should be able to. And I think, even some of the additions they made along the defensive line, should also help. I think getting a big guy like Alfred Collins to play in the middle of the defense should be able to eat up some gaps and allow guys like linebackers like Fred Warner to come down and make some plays in the run game.
I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at it, which is kind of crazy, he had on a bum foot or ankle, right? Whatever it was. He still played 17 games and had 131 tackles total. His most tackles he's ever had in his career is 137. So, like I said, I think we both think that he could just have an absolute field day because someone's going to have to step up on that team, and why not him?
Yeah, I mean, it truly's got to kind of start with him. I mean, he's one of the leaders on the defense, and really the heartbeat of the team. I feel like, and I think too, having Robert Saleh come back as the defensive coordinator, I think should really help as well.
So next guy we're going to be talking about here is another linebacker, and that's going to be linebacker Lavonte David of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A guy who seems like he's been playing for a long, long time, Joe. He's not going anywhere. But if you look at that defense, they didn't really address that linebacker position. They had Anthony Walker Jr. as the opposing linebacker, who's been kind of a guy who's been going, from place to place to place. But with David, I think as a result, because they didn't really address it, he really has to step up and be that guy. Now, how much longer is he going to be relevant for? I'm not sure. I would say, would you say one more year, Joe? I mean, I don't see him going for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think at least one more year here. I mean, he's he definitely an older guy, been playing a long time, but still really productive. And it's interesting hearing like Bucks GM talk about they've got a certain mentality that they like to play with. And he said it starts with Lavonte David. He's kind of the model of how they want the Tampa Bay Buccaneers players to be drafted and come in, and it starts with him. So he really is kind of not only the leader of the defense, but kind of the model of the team there.
Well, and look at the team gave him a 1-year contract for $9 million, fully guaranteed. So what does that tell you? They're planning on having. I mean, they wouldn't cut him anyways. I mean, he's probably a guy who's going to be in their ring of honor. I mean, he's been a Tampa Bay Buccaneer since he was drafted. But because there really wasn't another guy there, I think he's going to eat up a ton of tackles.
Yeah, he definitely should. I mean, that's really what he is. I mean, he is just he's really a tackling machine there.
So next guy we're going to be talking about here is a guy who was kind of a riser last year, and I think you and I both expect him to take a next step forward this upcoming year.
So our next biggest winner is going to be defensive end Tuli Tuipulotu of the Los Angeles Chargers. And he's a winner for us because not only did they not spend like high draft capital on an edge rusher in this draft for him to compete with, but they lose Joey Bosa in the offseason. So it's really just him and Khalil Mack. And we've seen the fact that the Chargers kind of like to rotate the players, but to me, they don't really have the depth to rotate as much this year. So we're expecting Tuipulotu to be on the field a little bit more this year and, build off of last season, like you said, and just increase his overall production there.
Yeah, I mean, when they lost Joey Bosa in free agency, many thought whether they'd be able to have him come back or not. Obviously, he didn't. And then, were they going to replace him? Because, they would rotate Bud Dupree, they'd rotate Joey Bosa, they got Tuli Tuipulotu, they got Khalil Mack. They signed Khalil Mack. Harbaugh obviously wanted him back. He made it known to the GM, like, hey, we got to get this guy, right? But I think it's a huge sign of confidence that the Chargers decided not to address that position and just go with Tuipulotu. That was shocking to me.
Yeah, I mean they did draft Kyle Kennard in the fourth round, so they just didn't spend draft capital like I mentioned. Right? Yeah,
fourth round is
depth piece
at the end of the day.
Yeah,
but he was according to PFF he was 50th in hurries, 33rd in QB hits with 8, 43 total pressures. So I would expect him to take that next leap forward going in there into his third season, I believe. All right, so the last guy we're going to be talking about here, and, many would say, Steve, this is kind of a homer pick. I had to kind of convince Joe on this one, but I think it makes a lot of sense here. That's going to be defensive tackle Ed Oliver of the Buffalo Bills. Ed Oliver was double-teamed quite a bit last year, and a lot of that was due to the fact that he just didn't have help in the interior defensive line. If you look at his stats last year, pretty disappointing. He came off his best year, having 9.5 sacks and 51 total tackles. He had an incredible year, and we were expecting that he would build off of that. Ended up having just 29 total tackles, which was the worst of his career. Now, he only played 14 games last year, But he also had 3 sacks, which was tied. Well, no, I guess he had 2.5 in 2022, but nothing even close to the 9.5 he had before. Now this year, I mean, the Bills have absolutely overhauled this defensive line, and you're talking about a lot of different help. So before it was just pretty much Daquan Jones and Ned Oliver and Dwayne Carter, but now they draft T.J. Sanders in the 2nd round. They draft who's another 3 tech, gives them some pass rush help, allows for more pressures there. Deion Walker, that big, huge 1 tech. I think he's 6'7", 6'8". He's a big guy. They obviously brought in Larry Ogunjobi in free agency. They draft Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. And don't forget, they brought in Michael Hoyt and Joey Bosa. I mean, it's just crazy the reinforcements that they've brought to the defensive line. This is not going to be the same defensive line. And so as a result, I don't think you can double team a guy like that, Oliver. I would think that was where teams were really keying in on the Bills' defensive line was that Oliver. I mean, sure, you had Greg Rousseau and Von Miller, but Von Miller was an aging Von Miller. He had lost his step. And then Greg Rousseau is sure, but I mean, as you know, Joe, not that you ever played the position, but we talk about it quite a bit, that if you have that interior pass rush and you're pushing that pocket, causes a lot of pressure for that quarterback and really causes some trouble. So I'm not surprised that they double teamed him so much last year.
Yeah, definitely. Well, especially because like that interior pressure is the worst pressure for quarterbacks to face. And it's, honestly, it just really, tougher to avoid, tougher to get away from than just the edge pressure. I mean, if you can get both interior and edge pressure, I mean, obviously that's ideal. But I do think, like you said, with the additions of not only the interior defensive line, which, they like to rotate guys in and out and keep those fresh bodies. I think that even, might help just from a pass rush standpoint too. Like if you're not playing as much, maybe you're more fresh throughout the game and you can rush the passer a bit more. But then having the edge rusher help as well, like you said, should definitely help in minimizing double teams if you have some, scarier guys out there.
I think that's a tough part, right? I mean, obviously you want your player to be on the field at all times. That if they're on the field, they have snaps, it's more likely that they're going to take advantage of those opportunities. But also if they're fresh, maybe, and they have better looks, I mean, at the end of the day, if he's not getting double teamed, he might be able to cause a lot more pressures, a lot more QB hits, a lot more sacks, where, if you're being double teamed, it's tough. I mean, and not everybody's Aaron Donald from back in the day.
Yeah, definitely. And just just think about how quickly you can get tired too, trying to battle 2 guys at once as well. I'm sure you get burned out quickly and get fatigued, and then, your stats and your performance are just going to fail from there. So I feel like, if the rotations and stuff like could looked at from a negative standpoint, like you said, just from loss of percentage of opportunities to make the impact plays and ultimately score points for IDP. But I think there's the other side too, where maybe you're fresher longer for the entire game. And when guys are tired, especially offensive linemen, they're not getting subbed in and out. They might be getting tired, but you should be pretty fresh.
Well, it just goes to show too, not that regardless of what you think of them, Pro Football Focus rated last year as Ed Oliver's best year, even though it was one of his worst statistical years. So it just goes to show he was still making impact on the field. It just wasn't showing up in the box score. A lot of the reason why is because they were keying in on him.
Yeah, 100%. And, ultimately for IDP, we need the box score numbers to go up, even though he was doing really good things and getting high grades out of PFF. That unless you're playing in a PFF league, that doesn't really help you in IDP leagues. That's
right, Joe. That's right. So that does it for this episode. We went through our top 5 IDP fantasy football winners post-2025 NFL drafts. If you haven't done so already, check out our most recent episode where we did the same thing, but for the offensive side. We talked about 5 veterans that, because of the NFL draft, we really like how things shaped out for them. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.